Thank you. Lieutenant Governor Davis, Speaker McClinton, President Pro Tem Ward, Leader Bradford, Leader Pittman, Leader Topper, and Leader Costa. Thank you for convening this special session and for giving me the honor of addressing this General Assembly for the third time as the 48th Governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I want to thank the senators and representatives gathered here and to welcome our fellow Pennsylvanians who join us in this beautiful chamber. I'm mindful that as we gather in this full chamber, one seat is empty this morning, that of the late Representative Matt Gergely. We continue to lift up his family in prayer. May Matt's memory forever be a blessing. Before I begin, I want to recognize my outstanding cabinet and senior team, led by our Chief of Staff, Dana Fritz, who I have the privilege of working alongside every single day to move our Commonwealth forward. Let's also welcome our Attorney General, Dave Sunday, our Treasurer, Stacey Garrity, and our Auditor General, Tim DeFore. And I especially want to welcome the love of my life and Pennsylvania's First Lady, Lori. Thank you. Thank you for all you do to lift up our fellow Pennsylvanians who aren't powerful enough to have a seat in this room, but whose problems have become our priorities. When this joint session was convened 2 years ago, I addressed you for the first time as governor, and for the first time in a dozen years, a governor addressed a divided legislature. I told you then that we needed to work together, and if we did, we could do big things. And over the last 700 days since that address, I've traveled all across this Commonwealth. I've gotten to see its splendor and meet with folks from all different walks of life. I've stood with our fellow Pennsylvanians in times of triumph and tragedy. Right now in Northeast Philly, people are walking around in their Eagles green, excited about the Super Bowl, while at the same time trying to process the horror of what happened on Cottman Ave on Friday night. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the victims of that terrible plane crash, and we're praying for a full and speedy recovery for those injured and battling right now. But through that tragedy, we've seen what makes Pennsylvania so special, our resilience and our willingness to band together to make it through tough times. Neighbor helping neighbor, every level of government working together. We can learn something from that example. And over the last 2 years, I think we have. Because despite our disagreements, we've worked together to get stuff done. We solved problems that languished for decades. We focused on common sense and delivered real results to make a real difference in Pennsylvanians' lives. I'm proud of that work, and you should be too. While there are still many challenges before us and many more problems to solve, we now have a real foundation to build upon. Today, I can report that Pennsylvania is on the rise. 170,000 more Pennsylvanians are working today than when I began my term 2 years ago. We've enrolled 12,000 new apprentices, giving more young people the freedom to chart their own course and the opportunity to succeed. We've attracted over $3 billion in private sector investment and become the top state in the Northeast for regional economic competitiveness. Pennsylvania is on the rise. Our seniors, like Bob Coleman, who join us here from Perry County today, they're staying in their homes because we gave Bob and 520,000 other seniors $320 million in tax cuts. Our families have $136 million back in their pockets because we made childcare more affordable. Pennsylvania is on the rise. We invested $11 billion in public education for the first time ever and targeted those dollars to the schools that need it most. That's right. We did that together. We are starting to meet the needs of our students, including serving nearly 92 million free breakfasts to kids at school last year. Pennsylvania's on the rise. We processed over 28 million permits in record time, eliminated backlogs, and cut wait lists for life-changing services. We are moving at the speed of business here in Pennsylvania. We've made wise investments that are beginning to pay off. And we still have billions of dollars in surplus at a time when neighboring states are facing serious deficits. Bridge repairs are up, and violent crime is down. Pennsylvania is on the rise. And listen, we've done this work together. Each of the last 2 years, both Democrats and Republicans have voted for common sense budgets that solve real problems. We move the ball down the field, and we put points on the board, and we should celebrate that. But we should be hungry for more. So today, let's talk about what comes next and how we build upon that foundation that we've laid. You know, this nation saw significant political change in the last election. Just 2 weeks ago, you can clap for that, that's all right. Just 2 weeks ago, President Trump was sworn into office with a U.S. Senate and a U.S. House under Republican control. But despite all that change, hang on, you may want to hold your applause for a sec, but despite all that change in D.C., the voters here in Pennsylvania returned a Republican Senate and a Democratic-controlled House with the exact same margins. That's right. Y'all came back with the same margins to continue to work with me to get stuff done. You see, the good people of Pennsylvania looked at all we've accomplished together and spoke loud and clear through their votes and said, go do more of that. Go work together. Go solve problems. Go pass common sense policies. Go build on that progress and go get more stuff done in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is on the rise, and we are not gonna stop. You see, we have the resources that we need to make smart investments now and to maintain a responsible balance in reserve. My administration has worked to cut costs and use our money more wisely. Last year, I directed our budget secretary to begin a comprehensive review of every program we offer in our Commonwealth. Known as the REMAP initiative, we started with 3 agencies and identified inefficiencies and costs that can be eliminated. This budget incorporates those savings by sunsetting programs that are duplicative and don't work. In addition to the savings from the REMAP initiative, I directed our Secretary of the Department of General Services to conduct the first ever comprehensive review of every space this Commonwealth owns or leases. The way we work has changed. We need more technology, more hoteling space, and more areas for collaboration. By using the buildings we own as effectively as possible and reducing our reliance on external parking and office leases, we are going to save the Commonwealth tens of millions of dollars over the next several years. And when we save that money, it gives us a chance to invest in the things that matter most, like great schools for our children. Over the last 2 years, we haven't shied away from hard conversations. We're solving complex problems. Case in point, how we reformed the way we fund public education. We knew that was a problem, and we all agreed that the old system was unconstitutional. So last year, we made a commitment to not only invest a record amount in public education, but create a brand new formula that drives that money out to the school districts that need it most. You voted for that, and I signed it into law. And we agreed to keep doing it until we meet our obligation set forth under Article 3, Section 14 of our state constitution, which guarantees every Pennsylvanian access to a thorough and efficient system of public education. Just 2 weeks ago, I visited the Harrison Morton Middle School in the Allentown School District. Thanks to the work that we all did together to both invest in our schools and then drive those dollars out under the new adequacy formula, Allentown School District is now receiving $90 million more than before. I saw the pride on those students' faces when the band played their new instruments and they got to show me their new uniforms. I heard the comfort in their voices when they told me that now they had more mental health resources in their school. And I listened to 8th grader Josh Hernandez talk about what a difference it makes to have a new HVAC system that keeps school cool on those warm days. Those kinds of school infrastructure repairs, well, they're happening in more than 250 schools all across our Commonwealth. Josh also told me how much he loves his teachers. And because of our work, we certified more new teachers than at any other time in the past 7 years. Together, we identified a teacher shortage crisis as a looming issue, and we did something about it to address it. We created a new initiative to fund student-teacher stipends to make sure those who are just getting started in this profession are paid for their hard work. I'm proud to welcome Melanie Williams here today. Melanie completed student teaching at Centennial School District in Bucks County last fall. She's the sole provider for her family, and she was only able to student teach because of those stipends. We're putting more teachers, there you go. Thank you. We're putting more teachers in our classroom and expanding the resources available to our students. 778 schools have been able to expand mental health services and hire counselors because we prioritized student mental health. And over 75,000 young people are charting their own course through VOTEC and CTE classes. That's 3,500 more than before. But there's still work to do before we can say we've met our constitutional obligation. My budget continues the path we set out on last year by investing an additional $526 million through that adequacy formula. And you know what? That $526 million figure, that's the exact same number we agreed to last year. This budget also continues our support for school repairs, mental health, free breakfast, student-teacher stipends, special education, and a whole lot more. What we're doing on education is working now. Let's continue to build on this foundation that we've laid. You know, education isn't the only problem that we're solving together. We knew it was a problem when those shady middlemen could jack up the cost of prescription drugs while driving our community pharmacies out of business. So we came together to pass landmark reform that bring transparency to how pharmacy benefit managers operate in and keep more money in Pennsylvanians' pockets. Protect. We're protecting the small and independent pharmacies we rely on, our communities now. But that's not all. We knew that in neighboring states, energy companies were developing groundbreaking new technologies, leaving Pennsylvania behind. So you passed and I signed legislation that allows companies to invest in carbon capture and energy innovation. On top of that, we stopped forcing our state police to compete with PennDOT by decoupling that funding for the first time in over 50 years. Now with distinct and dedicated funding, we're training 800 new state troopers. We fixed 12,000 miles of roadway, and hear me on this, we repaired more poor condition bridges than any other state in the entire country. These are just some of the examples of the many problems that we solve together. We should be proud not just of the laws we've passed, but the quality of the legislation and the fact that we're solving problems that have seemed so out of reach in this building for so long. So let's solve more problems together, starting with regulating those so-called skill games. Because if we want Pennsylvania to compete and win, we need to take some of the money going into those slots and put it in our state coffers so we can maintain our reserves and keep building on our progress. There are 70,000 unregulated skill game terminals all across Pennsylvania. District attorneys across our Commonwealth are calling on us to regulate these machines and finally provide law enforcement with some clear guidance. On top of that, these machines have no quality control for the customers who are using them, and they're punishing our seniors. Every time somebody puts a buck into one of those unregulated machines, it undermines the lottery and the critical services it funds for seniors, for things like prescriptions and meals. The Pennsylvania Lottery lost an estimated $200 million over the last 5 years, primarily due to these unregulated skill games. Our seniors deserve better than that. So my budget charges the Gaming Control Board, which already regulates other video gaming terminals, with regulating these skill games. In Pennsylvania, we'll treat skill games just like other video gaming terminals, and we'll use the revenue from that to do a couple things. First, we'll fill the funding gap for older adults that skill games caused in the first place. And second, we'll provide an influx to the general fund to strengthen our Commonwealth and speed our rise. We've been putting this off for too long. Let's be real. It's time to regulate and tax skill games and protect the interests of our seniors and our Commonwealth. Like skill games, there's another issue that's long overdue to regulate, and that is adult use cannabis. 24 states have already legalized adult use cannabis. That includes almost every single one of our neighbors. Look, I want to be real with you. As a father of 4, and as the former chief law enforcement of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, this was really hard for me. But I took the time to study it and to understand the impacts, to understand the choice between continuing the black market of drug dealing versus a highly regulated industry with protections in place for our children. Letting this business operate in the shadows, it doesn't make sense. And by doing nothing, we are making Pennsylvania less competitive. Besides, let's not kid ourselves here. Pennsylvanians who want to buy cannabis, they're just driving across the border to one of our neighbors. 5 of our neighboring states have legalized adult use cannabis. I've talked to the CEOs of the companies right across the border in Jersey and Maryland and New York who tell me that 60% of their customers in those shops are Pennsylvanians. We're losing out on revenue that's going to other states instead of helping us right here. We're losing out on an industry that over the first 5 years will bring in $1.3 billion in revenue to our Commonwealth. And so I ask you to come together and send to my desk a bill that legalizes adult-use cannabis, expunges the records of people who have been convicted for non-violent possession of small amounts of marijuana. And a bill that sets reasonable regulations, protects public safety, and gives communities that suffered from the criminalization of cannabis an opportunity to succeed. I know some are going to say it's complicated, but look, this has been talked about for years. And in just the last 2 years, Ohio to our west, Maryland to our south have legalized, and we keep falling further behind. I've been heartened by the fact that more and more Republicans are joining Democrats coming on board to embrace liberty and economic opportunity. Let's get this done together. I know many of you care about making Pennsylvania more competitive. And thanks to the work we've done together over the past 2 years, we are competing again. We're building new industrial sites that will host factories and labs and power plants. We're improving our main streets and supporting the small businesses that line them. We developed a plan to revitalize downtown Pittsburgh and leverage $60 million in state capital to generate $600 million in private sector investment for the Golden Triangle. We are reforming our government to finally move at the speed of business. We took a hard look at our permitting, licensing, and certification processes, and we slashed wait times. We cleared backlogs, and we fixed systems that hadn't been looked at in years. Now it takes just 3 days to get a business license instead of 8 weeks. You can get a new barber license same day instead of waiting 12. Look, time is money. Time is money. And we've got now a permit fast-track process for major economic development projects like Bellwether in South Philly and Project Hazelnut in Hazleton. We now have a money-back guarantee making sure permits get processed on time. And hear me on this. Since that guarantee went into effect 15 months ago, we have only had to process 4 refunds out of millions of permits. Our team in the Commonwealth is doing a great job. Last year, you passed and I signed into law the SPEED Act to move projects more quickly through the environmental review process. For years, people in this building have been talking about permitting reform. We've actually gotten it done, and the results speak for themselves. We jumped 25 spots, more than any other state in the whole nation, going from one of the most burdensome states in terms of occupational licensing to one of the best, according to a trusted national index. And Site Selector magazine named us the top state in the Northeast for economic competitiveness. We're moving at the speed of business, and we are inking major deals again. Last year, you all came together to deliver $1.1 billion in new funding for economic development. And as a result of that $1.1 billion in incentives that you passed, we've secured more than $3 billion in new private sector investment. That's a great ROI for our taxpayers. Companies like Gecko Robotics in Pittsburgh and Martin's Potato Rolls in Chambersburg, they're growing now with our help. We're also attracting companies from all over the world to relocate right here in Pennsylvania. From Il Pastillo, a world-renowned pasta maker that opened up, get this, their first American manufacturing facility in Union County, to biotech companies like Adair Pharma Solutions, who recently moved their headquarters from Jersey to Northeast Philly. Businesses are choosing Pennsylvania again. And it's not just businesses that are choosing Pennsylvania, it's big events too. I'm proud of the fact that we landed the NFL draft in Pittsburgh. This iconic event will bring hundreds of thousands of people to Western Pennsylvania and generate nearly $200 million in local economic impact. That's on top of FIFA World Cup, the MLB All-Star Game, the PGA Championship, and so many more big events all across our Commonwealth. My budget ensures that these epic events will have the resources that they need, because all eyes are going to be on Pennsylvania as we celebrate America's 250th birthday in 2026 and welcome millions of people to where it all began. Every year, Pennsylvania welcomes nearly 200 million visitors as they enjoy their own great American getaway. They come here for our sports and our history, our small towns, our restaurants, and our craft breweries. They also come here to experience our Commonwealth's natural beauty on a kayak, on horseback, by bike, and yes, even in an RV with their 4 children. Last year, we worked together to invest in tourism, and it's already paying off with more interest, more visitors, and more hotel rooms booked. So this year, let's build on that foundation by connecting more trails and creating more state parks. This budget expands Lehigh Gorge State Park to include the popular Glenanoco Falls Trail and creates Pennsylvania's first underground state park at the incredible Laurel Caverns. By the way, Laurel Caverns will be our 125th state park. Pennsylvania is home to some of the most beautiful, remarkable places in the country, and I want more people to experience them. This is a budget that looks to the future, whether it's supporting America 250 or expanding access to our parks and trails, all of which are free, by the way. And as we look to the future, we need to invest in the key sectors that are going to fuel our growth. That's why our economic development strategy identified 5 pillars of opportunity: energy, agriculture, manufacturing, robotics and technology, and life sciences. This budget supports all 5 sectors, but I want to focus on life sciences for just a moment, because this is an area where we are poised for explosive innovation and growth. If you look at the landscape of life sciences, 2 regions have really dominated our country for many years: the Bay Area and Boston. And listen, it pains me to utter the word Boston given my serious hatred of the Boston Celtics. But facts are facts here. But after them, there's a huge drop-off and a huge life sciences void that should be filled by us. Think about it. We are already home to world-class universities and research institutions. Penn, Pitt, and Penn State all spend over $1 billion annually on groundbreaking research and development. And taken together, our colleges and universities rank 4th in the nation in life sciences R&D spending. Over 100,000 of our fellow Pennsylvanians work in this industry at places like Crystal Biotech in Western PA, Spark Therapeutics in Philly, and GSK in Lancaster County. The foundation is there. We just need to connect the dots and create an ecosystem where innovators and entrepreneurs can really thrive. That's why my budget delivers $65 million more for innovation and specifically designates $30 million for life sciences to help our industry leaders share data, commercialize their discoveries, and unleash Pennsylvania's full potential. This is desperately needed. In the last 5 years, get this, Pennsylvania companies received 10,783 new life sciences patents. That's the 4th highest number in the entire country. But we only received 3% of the venture capital flooding into life sciences. That means we're effectively doing the research, but then we're losing out on the commercial opportunities to other states. We should change that, because when life sciences grow and thrive, we not only improve people's lives, but we improve other major industries too. Let's take B. Braun, a leading life sciences company in the Lehigh Valley. They produce IV fluids, pharmacy products, and complex medical devices. And last year, they sourced $200 million in raw material and equipment from over 100 Pennsylvania-based suppliers. That includes materials from Exton, resins from Pittsburgh, and moldings from Meadville. Life sciences feeds into every other sector of our economy and supports real growth. Did you know that the #1 purchaser of eggs from Pennsylvania poultry farmers is a life sciences company? Sanofi Pasteur purchases 200 million eggs from those farmers every single year to power our work. So much of our economic development is really intertwined, perhaps nothing as much as agriculture. That's why for the first time ever, agriculture is now at the center of our economic development strategy. Ag isn't just part of our rich heritage in Pennsylvania. It is a key part of our future. There are 50,000 farms across Pennsylvania that contribute $132 billion to our economy and support almost 600,000 Pennsylvania jobs. To ignore that isn't just disrespectful. It doesn't make sense economically. 62% of those farms are less than 100 acres. Pennsylvania has more small and mid-sized farms than almost any other state in the whole country. So when we talk about agriculture, we're not just talking about these big farms. We're talking about our small businesses, too. There are few things more noble in life than working every day to feed our neighbors. We have to support and invest in Pennsylvania farmers. This I've never seen so many people who represent farmers who can't even clap for them. You know, this body came together last year to create the first Ag Innovation Fund in the nation. You seeded it with $10 million to start, and the response has been overwhelming. In the first year, the Department of Agriculture received 159 applications for nearly $70 million worth of innovation projects. The demand is there, so I'm coming back to you with a plan to more than double funding for ag innovation. As we help our farmers embrace the latest technology, we also need to be there for them when disaster strikes. For months, we've known that high-path avian influenza was likely to return to our Commonwealth. We've taken aggressive and proactive steps to communicate with our farmers, from our major commercial sites to our Amish community, and to encourage them to put biosecurity measures in place. While other states have been slow to react, we have been proactive, and it's helped us avoid the worst so far. But last week, we confirmed the first case of high-path in a commercial flock this year in Lehigh Valley. And over the weekend, a commercial flock was infected in Middletown in Dauphin-county. The Department of Agriculture is all hands on deck right now, working to reduce the spread and to protect our farmers. But for those who are impacted, I want you to know we are here for you. Thanks to proactive planning, we have the only high-path recovery fund in the nation, with more than $60 million set aside to support poultry farmers whose flocks have been impacted. We are ready to deploy those existing resources to assist our farmers in need. We will be there for our farmers because our economic success runs right through Pennsylvania farmlands. Economic success requires us to ensure a farmer, a life sciences company, or small business can get their goods to market, and that people who do the work can get to and from the job site. Last fall, I was standing next to a repaired bridge in Manheim Borough in Lancaster County. listening to folks in that community express appreciation for PennDOT repairing their bridge over Rife Run. And now they were able to get to work quicker and then get back home to their kids for dinner sooner. In my first 2 years as your governor, we've delivered over $380 million in new funding for our roads and bridges and used it to repair more poor condition bridges than any other state in the entire country. On top of that, we repaired 12,000 miles of roads. That's more than any other time in the last decade. We are building out a transportation network that puts our tradespeople to work, strengthens our businesses, and improves our quality of life. But look, I am mindful that for some, going to work and coming home in time for dinner doesn't take you over a rural bridge like Rife Run. Instead, it requires you to ride a bus or hop a trolley, a train, or the subway. And just like we repair and maintain the bridges on those rural and suburban communities, we also owe it to Pennsylvanians in Pittsburgh and Lancaster, and yes, in Philadelphia, who rely on mass transit. And so my budget delivers to keep our mass transit running all across our Commonwealth. And while we're at it, let's deliver more funding for roads and bridges, especially in our rural communities, so we can continue that progress too. It should not be an either or, this should be a both and. Whether you're a mom, in Mantua, McKeesport, or in Mannheim, you deserve a transportation network that gets you to work and home again in time for dinner safely. And so, by investing in our roads and bridges and public transit, we not only help Pennsylvanians get where they need to go, we're also attracting businesses and growing our economy. But if we really want to spur economic growth and help businesses grow here, one of the most important things we can do is make our tax system more competitive. In my first 2 years, we've cut taxes. We've cut taxes significantly for businesses, lowering the corporate net income tax and increasing the net operating loss for small businesses, which allows them to write off more of their losses so they have greater opportunity to get off the ground and be successful. Some were actually amazed that we were able to reach agreement and cut taxes so aggressively. And while I appreciate the accolades, I want you to know I am hungry for more. During my campaign, I heard from the chamber and countless businesses all across Pennsylvania who wanted to see faster cuts to our corporate net income tax. And so that's exactly what this budget does. Let's be more aggressive and speed up these tax cuts by 2 whole years so we can compete more effectively and unleash our Commonwealth's full potential. And while we speed up those tax cuts, let's make our tax system simpler, more modern, and more streamlined to spur on even more economic growth. Let me give you an example. Unlike most other businesses in Pennsylvania, banks and financial institutions pay one of 3 separate taxes instead of the corporate net income tax. One of those bank taxes is so old, it was passed when President Abraham Lincoln led this country. Let's eliminate those 3 outdated bank taxes and make our system simpler and more consistent. This is common sense stuff. And you know what else we can do to make our tax system more fair and consistent? Well, we can close something called the Delaware loophole. So follow me on this, right? Of all the businesses in Pennsylvania, nearly 90% pay their full amount due in taxes, whether that's the CNIT or the personal income tax. But 11% of those businesses, and you know, they're typically the big ones who can afford big-time accountants and high-priced lawyers, well, they take advantage of a loophole in our system to avoid paying their fair share to our fellow Pennsylvanians. It's not fair that they get a free pass while everybody else pays. Think about it. They generate a lot of revenue here in this Commonwealth. They use our roads and bridges and schools and parks, and then they avoid paying taxes here due to an outdated loophole that 28 other states have already closed. That includes states like Texas and Utah, New York and West Virginia, states led by Democrats and states led by Republicans. So let's close the loophole, cut taxes more aggressively, and move on from Civil War era fiscal policy. It's time to get that done. In just my first 2 years in office, we have already cut taxes for businesses by more than $1.5 billion. Taken together with the progress we've made, my plan would cut taxes by $10.5 billion by 2029. It will encourage more companies to move here and expand here. It will allow them to reinvest in our workers and expand their operations. Folks in this building have been talking about cutting taxes for years. But here I am, a Democratic governor with an aggressive plan to cut taxes, ready to work with you to get it done and make Pennsylvania more competitive. So let's join together. Cutting taxes is important to strengthen our economy. But no matter what sector you're in, it's important to remember we are a people-powered economy. And we've got to invest in the people who are doing the work here. One of the biggest problems we face in Pennsylvania is workforce shortages. That's why I've been focused on expanding our workforce from my very first day in office, when I signed an executive order to make 92% of state government jobs open to Pennsylvanians without a college degree. Since then, nearly 60% of all new hires here in the Commonwealth do not have a college degree. Taken together with what we've invested in education to address workforce shortages and help businesses find the workers, we are now helping grow our economy. This budget builds on that foundation and places a special emphasis on workforce development. And I want to be clear, workforce is different than employment. There are 170,000 more people working today than when I took office, and our unemployment rate is near historic lows. What I'm talking about is the future of our workforce. We need to ensure that we have enough trained workers in the industries that will fuel our growth. We face growing workforce shortages across several critical sectors, including childcare, direct care, and health care. This isn't unique to Pennsylvania. Other states are grappling with this problem too. But we know how to solve problems here, so let's get to work on it. It starts by respecting all paths to success. Some Pennsylvanians join the workforce right out of high school. Some complete an apprenticeship. Some join the military. Some go to college. There are many paths to success, and we've got to respect and support all of them. That's what we've done together over the past 2 years, increasing funding for VOTEC, career and technical education, and apprenticeships by nearly $65 million. Today, our Commonwealth invests 50% more in workforce development than the day I took office. As a result, we've created over 110 new pre-apprenticeships and registered apprenticeships in just 2 years. And we've trained over 29,500 Pennsylvanians in fields like welding, manufacturing, transportation, and ag. As I said, there's many paths to success. And last year, we came together to make the first significant progress on higher education in 30 years. We directed significant resources toward our public universities and community colleges, while at the same time expanding access to scholarships that make a college education more affordable. And we finally started to fix the problem that I identified in my first budget address of universities competing against each other for limited dollars and then ultimately driving up the cost for students. We created a coordinating council to ensure that we're all rowing in the same direction. And for the first time ever, we are going to incentivize outcomes, paying our universities for their performance in meeting goals like graduating students with in-demand degrees and skills, graduating first-generation college students, incentivizing universities when their graduates stay and work here in Pennsylvania. And so now we need to build on that foundation. My budget keeps up the scholarships and grants we funded last year, and it fully funds that performance-based formula for Pitt, Penn State, and Temple. Let's continue the work we started to create opportunity for Pennsylvanians. There can be no wrong door for accessing opportunity. And opportunity should be available to those with and without a degree. Did you know that there are 650,000 Pennsylvanian adults who don't even have a high school degree? That's hundreds of thousands of our neighbors with untapped potential. Folks who actually want to advance their careers, but they need help developing the reading, writing, and math skills that most jobs require. That's where adult literacy initiatives come in. They provide the training and education folks need to get a job, keep a job, and get a better job. We have 54 centers all across Pennsylvania that do this work. And more than 7,500 people are stuck on their wait lists because they don't have enough funding. But once folks get into a class, it can be life-changing. That's the story of Alexandra McDowell, who joins us today from Lancaster County. Welcome. Alexandra took an adult literacy class and then got her GED, which allowed her to get a job as a home health aide, a field with a critical workforce shortage, helping herself and our fellow Pennsylvanians. These classes are the bridge to more people getting a GED. That's why this investment of $6 million in adult literacy is so critical. It's a bridge to opportunity, to grow our workforce. We need to believe in the potential of all people in Pennsylvania and not shut anyone out. So let's open up the doors of opportunity for those 650,000 Pennsylvanians who want to learn so they can walk through. There are so many Pennsylvanians who want to be part of our workforce, but too oftentimes get forgotten and left behind. One of the greatest privileges Lori and I have had is meeting with those with disabilities who are out working, powering our economy, and putting smiles on people's faces. Whether it's when we grab a coffee at Knorr in Camp Hill, a sandwich at Biddy & Bo's in Bethlehem, or a cookie at 260 Bridge Cafe in Phoenixville. These folks might have physical or intellectual disabilities, but they're making incredibly valuable contributions in our communities every single day. We recognize that. People often underestimate what people with disabilities are capable of, but we're different here in Pennsylvania because we know that people with disabilities, they bring unique strengths to the work that they do. You know, we have an entire office in the Department of Labor and Industry that helps folks with disabilities get right into the workforce. It's called OVR, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. This office doesn't just give workers the skills they need, it actually fosters connections between the 50,000 Pennsylvanians who receive help from OVR and the businesses that are looking for trained workers. This is something that the First Lady herself has worked closely on with our team at L&I, DCED, and the Office of Transformation and Opportunity. One of the iconic Pennsylvania companies that has a history of hiring individuals with disabilities is Sheetz. They've been working with OVR for a few years, hiring Pennsylvanians with disabilities to work in their distribution center. Recently, the First Lady went to Wawa to encourage them to also partner with our OVR team, and they agreed. Look, I know Sheetz and Wawa have always had a bit of a friendly rivalry. In fact, I know there's a bunch of people in this room who have chosen sides in that rivalry. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Sheetz and Wawa and so many others are unified behind lifting up and employing those with special needs and disabilities. I'm proud of both companies, and we're going to keep reaching out to businesses all across Pennsylvania to encourage them to hire people who have so much to contribute to our workforce. I want to thank the First Lady for her leadership in this space and ask all of you to join her and come together to fund the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation so that work can continue. Let the record reflect, everybody seems to clap for the First Lady. OVR is just one part of our effort to expand our workforce and address the shortages we face in key areas like childcare. Too many young parents are forced to exit the workforce because they can't find affordable childcare. We've taken action over the last 2 years to make childcare more affordable, expanding one tax credit for families and creating another for businesses who contribute to their employees' childcare costs. But we can't just tackle affordability. We have to increase the availability of childcare. Right now, we have 3,000 unfilled jobs in childcare. If we filled those jobs, 25,000 more children in Pennsylvania could have access to childcare, and parents could have peace of mind that their kids are well taken care of when they go to work. Look, we've studied this issue from all angles with community organizations, chambers of commerce, members of my administration, and everyone reaches the same conclusion. The reason why these jobs aren't filled is because folks aren't being offered a competitive wage. Today, we're joined by Michelle Delago, the director of a child care center in Schuylkill County. After serving our nation in the U.S. Army, Michelle has dedicated her life to others, ensuring our kids get off to a great start. But it's hard for her to hire enough child care workers because we don't pay them enough. So this budget delivers $55 million to give child care workers in Pennsylvania at least $1,000 in recruitment or retention bonuses. Look, we know this type of approach works to fill critically important positions. We've tried it with other jobs, including recruitment bonuses for municipal police officers. We came together to pass that, and as a result, we've been able to recruit nearly 700 new police officers across Pennsylvania. So let's build on that foundation and tackle this workforce shortage too. Childcare isn't the only industry facing shortages because wages are too low. That's also the case with our direct care workers. I've gotten to know so many of these good souls who go into people's homes and provide care for those with disabilities and for our seniors. People like Cheryl Harp, who join us in the chamber today. Cheryl moved home to Harrisburg 10 years ago to care for Veronica, her aging mother. Thanks to Cheryl, Veronica is able to stay in her home, cared by someone who loves her deeply. Listen, we've come together as Democrats and Republicans to support those who care for the most vulnerable in our society. After years of shortchanging the IDA community, we made an historic commitment to meet their needs in this past budget, and it's working. In For the first time ever, more than 40,000 Pennsylvanians with intellectual disabilities or autism are getting the services that they need. And after years of inaction, we reduced the emergency waiting list by 20% since just last July. So let's continue to show we care for our neighbors this year by supporting participant-directed care and home care workers like Cheryl with increased wages, paid time off, and access to affordable health insurance. A sustainable home care workforce is also critical for our seniors, many of whom rely on their services. That was one of the takeaways from Pennsylvania's first ever master plan for older adults, Aging Our Way, PA. And it's why, as part of that plan, the Department of Aging created a caregiver toolkit to give those caring for our seniors more help doing these difficult jobs. There are 2.6 million Pennsylvanians over the age of 65. And the best way to meet their needs is to work closely with our community partners, including our AAAs. One of the most critical areas our master plan identified was providing better support for our AAAs, which serve as community centers, connect older adults to critical resources, and serve as the front lines of protecting our older adults from abuse and neglect. I visit many of these AAAs, and I've seen how they've been underfunded for too long. This year, we should make a significant new investment in AAAs and support our seniors. We have a special responsibility to look out for those seniors who served our nation. Pennsylvania is home to 800,000 veterans. I recently visited with the General the Delaware Valley Veterans Home to thank them for their service to our nation and to celebrate the holidays together. These are wonderful people who served our nation and deserve the best. As we continue to build a new veterans home in Harrisburg, I've directed my team to make housing for veterans a priority going forward and fully fund our veterans' needs. Thank you. So whether a Pennsylvanian lives in one of our 6 veteran homes, visits a AAA, or goes to the doctor, they deserve great care. But here in Pennsylvania, we are facing shortages of healthcare professionals, especially in our rural communities. Consider this. In urban counties in Pennsylvania, there is 1 primary care doctor for every 222 residents. In rural counties, there is 1 primary care doctor for every 522 residents. That means rural Pennsylvanians who already have to travel further distances to get to their doctor also have less access. To ensure every Pennsylvanian, no matter their zip code, has access to high-quality healthcare professionals, we've got to take action to build a more competitive healthcare workforce. Across this whole budget, we take steps to find more doctors and nurses where we need them most. And we expand an existing and successful loan forgiveness initiative to incentivize more healthcare providers and behavioral health specialists to take jobs all across our Commonwealth. There are also common sense steps we can take to ease these shortages that don't come with a price tag, like giving full practice authority to highly educated, highly qualified nurse practitioners who work under a licensed physician for at least 3 years. This is smart, and it's already passed. The state Senate passed a bill last year on a bipartisan basis. Pass it again, send it to the House, get it to my desk, and let's get this done. We need to address these workforce shortages for the future. We need to make sure our workers today are being treated fairly. Let's be real, folks. The floor of our wage structure in Pennsylvania is too damn low. It's been stuck at $7.25 for the last 16 years. And in that time, every single one of our neighboring states has raised the minimum wage for their workers. Maryland and Delaware are at $15. New York and New Jersey are over $15. Ohio's at $10.70. Hell, West Virginia is at $8.75. In the last session, the House of Representatives passed legislation to increase our minimum wage to $15 an hour, and the Senate sat on their hands. That decision to do nothing is hurting our workers. We have spent so much time passing laws to put money back in people's pockets by cutting taxes. How about we put more money in people's pockets by raising their wages? Let's come together and raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour in Pennsylvania. This budget places a special emphasis on filling critical workforce gaps. It makes strategic, common sense investments to give every Pennsylvanian a shot at success. And it solves real problems, including in health care. One of the most heartbreaking problems our grandmoms and grandpops face are neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and ALS and Parkinson's. There are members of this body who have lost parents due to these terrible diseases. And I know they want us to do more here to honor the memories of their loved ones. Pennsylvania is home to some of the top research institutions in the world. Let's put them to work by funding groundbreaking research into neurodegenerative diseases and make Pennsylvania a leader in this fight. By doing so, we would build on the progress we made last year when we created the first Alzheimer's disease division in the Department of Aging. Let's keep working on this together. To ensure Pennsylvanians have the best possible care throughout their lives, we've got to address the significant structural challenges hospitals across the Commonwealth are facing right now. Rural hospitals in particular have been stretched to the breaking point. That's why I convened a rural healthcare working group back in 2023. I've spent time working directly with our hospital CEOs, healthcare providers, folks in this chamber, and many others to be able to find sustainable solutions to this problem. And based on those conversations, my budget leverages $10 million from the Commonwealth to draw down an additional $26 million in federal matching funds to provide immediate relief to Pennsylvania hospitals. And recognizing the unique challenges facing our rural hospitals, it invests another $10 million in state funds to help meet their needs. But I know there is more we can do to support our hospitals and solve some of the big problems they face. Sometimes solving those problems costs money. Sometimes it just requires the courage to make real reform. For example, when we came together last year to reform the way pharmacy benefit managers operate, it didn't cost any money in the budget, but it saved taxpayers money on their prescriptions. We should not stop there. Let's reform the way private equity has infected our healthcare system. Let me explain this. Let me explain this. Private equity is motivated to make a profit and to make it quickly. It doesn't mean that they're doing something wrong or criminal. They buy up hospitals and healthcare facilities, line their pockets by stripping money and resources from those facilities, and then they compromise care. Then in many cases, they skip town, leaving taxpayers holding the bag in communities without the care and services they need. I am done letting private equity treat Pennsylvania hospitals like a piggy bank they can empty out and just smash on our floor. So why don't you join me in standing up for our local hospitals and nursing facilities and put in place real safeguards against private equity. Let's require pre-transaction notification for all sales and mergers and acquisitions and bankruptcy claims by empowering the Office of Attorney General to review these intentions carefully, comprehensively, and with the community's best interests at the forefront. Let's also put an end to the harmful leaseback arrangements where a private equity-backed hospital or nursing home sells their land and then rents it back, often at excessively high prices that push them deeper into debt. Many of you in this chamber have seen the damage that private equity can do to local healthcare facilities. In fact, Democrats and Republicans in the Senate and in the House have sponsored bills to make these needed reforms. Pass the bills, put them on my desk, and stop letting private equity take advantage of our healthcare system and our fellow Pennsylvanians. Here's something in the healthcare space that we don't often talk about. An issue that lurks in the shadows but affects 1 in 8 moms across our country: postpartum depression. Improving maternal health is important to me, and I know it is to so many of you in this chamber, including the Black Maternal Health Caucus. 2 years ago, we came together to make the first ever state investment to address maternal mortality, and we doubled down on it last year. But when it comes to postpartum depression, moms in need aren't getting the help that they deserve. So I'm directing the Department of Health to work with healthcare providers across Pennsylvania to implement universal postpartum screenings for moms, train doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals on how to more quickly identify postpartum depression, speed up referrals to mental health professionals when a mom is diagnosed, and create a resource hub where families can go find more information, as well as local support networks for postpartum depression. Let's take an issue. Thank you. Let's take an issue that lurks in the shadows and put it right in the middle of the conversation. Let's end the stigma around postpartum depression, just like we've worked to end the stigma around mental health. Over the last 2 years, we've made a commitment to treat mental health just as seriously as physical health here in Pennsylvania. We've taken aggressive action to deliver mental health parity. In fact, our review process for parity, led by the insurance department, now serves as a national model. But we can't stop there. There are still reforms that need to be made. We've come together to deliver $200 million that schools can use to increase mental health supports for our students. It's working, but we found a glaring loophole. While an insurance company would normally cover mental health services for students, they often don't if those services are delivered within the walls of a school. That makes no sense. If the same student saw the same mental health professional and received the same service in an office across the street from the school, the insurance company would reimburse for it. So let's close this loophole that insurance companies are taking advantage of and pass a law to stop insurance companies from denying payment for mental health services simply because they are provided inside the walls of a school. And while we're fixing mental health coverage for kids, here's another thing we should work on. Let's have transparency in pricing in healthcare. Look, if you make any other purchase, from groceries to buying the refrigerator that you store those groceries in, you can look up the price ahead of time and see what the store is going to charge you. You can shop around and make the right choice for your family based on quality and price. You should be able to pick your doctor based on quality and price too. As individuals, we go to our insurance company and we ask, how much will I have to pay to get this inhaler for my kid that he was prescribed? But we actually can't compare that to what other insurance providers would charge. Pennsylvanians deserve price transparency in their healthcare system. So this budget invests $4 million in PHC4 to develop an all-payer claims database. This database will collect medical, pharmacy, and dental claims from private and public insurers and then make them publicly available. That small investment of $4 million could save Pennsylvanians hundreds of millions of dollars on their medical bills. This is a common sense way to cut healthcare costs. Let's also enshrine the protections of the Affordable Care Act under federal law into our state law here in Pennsylvania. Today, 1.2 million Pennsylvanians get their health care through the Affordable Care Act. And while I know there are some who would like to do away with it down in Washington, D.C., the fact is it's working for Pennsylvanians. Pennsylvanians have come to rely on guaranteed coverage for pre-existing conditions, the guarantee that young adults can stay on their parents' insurance until they turn 26, and the guarantee that lifetime limits won't price people out of health care that they so need and so deserve. If we fail to take action and the ACA goes away, health care costs will dramatically increase for Pennsylvanians. Let's work together to make sure that doesn't happen. From childcare to healthcare to energy, we have been focused together on cutting costs all across the board. Our Commonwealth is the second largest energy exporter in the country and one of the most important energy producers in the world. Because of that, we are powerful enough to develop common sense policies that will lower costs, protect and create jobs, and take meaningful action to address climate change. Last week, I announced my vision to secure our Commonwealth's energy future, the Lightning Plan, inspired by Ben Franklin and backed by environmental groups, the building trades, chambers of commerce, consumer organizations, and even industry leaders. The Lightning Plan takes bold steps to increase energy productions, explore pathways to renewable sources, and grow our economy. It takes concrete, direct steps to cut energy costs, create jobs, hold down electric bills for families, and increase generation in our Commonwealth. The time for action is now. So when folks turn on the light switch in their homes, they won't have to worry whether the power will turn on or the bill will be too high. Here's another thing people shouldn't have to worry about: access to safe, affordable housing. In April, my administration will certify over $1 billion in property tax relief through the homestead and farmstead exclusion. It's the first time ever that there will be over $1 billion available for property tax relief. The day I took office, the average homeowner received a savings of $225. As a result of this certification, those average savings will climb to $386 per household. We are cutting costs for Pennsylvanians, but we need to do more. In Indiana County, over the last 5 years, rent has increased 26%. In Philadelphia County, it's increased by 30%. Two very different counties with the exact same problem that's mostly being driven by a severe lack of new development across Pennsylvania. To meet the need for housing this year alone, we need more than 100,000 new homes and apartments. Last September, I signed an executive order to create Pennsylvania's first ever housing action plan, and we've been busy at work. While the final housing plan will be coming in the next few months, we've identified 6 key steps we can take immediately to begin to solve this problem. First, let's invest $10 million to help first-time homebuyers cover closing costs. So not only can they put a roof over their head, but they will have a real opportunity to build generational wealth. Second, let's staff up the state planning board so it can help local communities fix their permitting and zoning and code enforcement issues and build more homes more quickly. We've improved permitting at the state level. Let's help our local partners do the same. Third, let's create an interagency council on homelessness to improve support and coordination for the unhoused. Fourth, let us continue the progress we made last year by increasing our largest and most flexible affordable housing tool, FAIR. Let's increase it by an additional $10 million and reach $110 million by the end of 2028. In the last 2 years, FAIR has been used for construction on 2,000 new homes and apartments and repairs of another 3,200, protecting folks' homes and keeping them affordable. Fifth, let's seal eviction records if you weren't actually evicted. In Pennsylvania, as soon as an eviction is filed, it becomes permanent mark on someone's background, even if that case eventually gets ruled in the tenant's favor. That makes literally no sense. Let's deploy our common sense mentality and fix this together by sealing those cases from public record. And sixth, let's invest $50 million to create a new statewide housing repair fund to help homeowners struggling to make needed repairs to their aging homes. Consider this. Almost 60% of all the homes in Pennsylvania were built before 1970. Many of them are in dire need of repair. But a lot of homeowners, like Thomasine Frank from Lawrence County, who joins us here today, well, they just can't afford it. Thomasine, who's with us today, has been on the wait list for home repair funding for 2 years now. She's dealing with a leaky roof and a back door that doesn't close right. We can help Thomasine, and we can solve this problem. I know you see the needs in your communities. I've seen it in rural, urban, and suburban neighborhoods. Many of you have even attended our administration's roundtables to discuss it. You've heard from your constituents. It is time to deliver for them. By taking these common sense steps, we can cut housing costs and help more Pennsylvanians pursue the American dream. So we're cutting costs. We're cutting costs for Pennsylvanians. We're making sure they can receive the health care that they need. We're expanding our workforce, investing in our schools, growing our economy. Working together, we are solving real problems. So let's solve another by prioritizing the needs of our brave firefighters. Let me give you an example. The Wilkes-Barre Fire Department responds to 10,000 calls every year, but they're using a fire engine that's more than 30 years old. It's not because they want to, it's because they haven't been able to secure the funding to buy a new one. We're joined today by Wilkes-Barre Fire Department Assistant Chief Travis Temerance and Captain Rich Matchey. Thank you, gentlemen. These guys and their teams literally run into burning buildings to keep us safe. We need to do right by them. My budget takes 3 concrete steps to support our firefighters. First, it creates a new competitive funding stream of $30 million in grants for our fire companies. We already appropriate $30 million through a different initiative, and that money gets spread out all across our fire companies. Firefighters know they'll get a steady stream of funding every year, and that's a good foundation. But the current system makes it hard for companies like Wilkes-Barre to make a single big purchase or an equipment upgrade. This budget solves that problem by establishing competitive grants that allow fire companies to purchase equipment, recruit and retain firefighters, and meet their unique needs. Second, we have to be mindful that firefighters are being stretched thin right now, responding to more and more calls each year as the number of firefighters across the Commonwealth shrinks. Fire companies have told me that they want to collaborate more and share more services, but there's no incentive for them to do that because it costs them money. My budget incentivizes cooperation and creates a pilot program to help municipal fire companies work together. Just like our law enforcement officers and first responders, our firefighters do a dangerous job, and they deserve our support. Third, let's cover cancer screenings for firefighters every single year. Last year, we reformed our Workers' Compensation Act to ensure firefighters, first responders, and law enforcement with a post-traumatic stress injury get the coverage that they deserve. Let's build on that foundation. Firefighters expose themselves to toxic chemicals while on the job just to keep us safe. We have to have their backs. Join me in supporting our firefighters. Thank you for your service. When that plane crashed in Northeast Philly on Friday night, we saw our brave firefighters put out a raging jet fuel fire. Because of how quickly they acted, lives were saved. They did that work in partnership with law enforcement. Law enforcement at all levels work together to help a frightened community. We have to keep investing in our police, especially our state police, the finest law enforcement organization in the entire country. They take seriously their responsibility to be there for Pennsylvanians, from Northeast Philly to the Northern Tier. But in turn, it's our responsibility to provide them with the resources they need to be successful. That's why we took an historic step to give PSP dedicated funding, and we have to continue that commitment in this budget. We've also funded new cadet classes to offset increasing numbers of troopers nearing retirement. Today, nearly 400 more highly trained troopers are out in our communities thanks to that bipartisan commitment, and more are on their way. To build on that foundation, this budget adds 4 more cadet classes for the Pennsylvania State Police. This budget also supports our corrections officers, reducing the strain on them and giving them the resources that they need to do their critically important jobs successfully. My administration has prioritized filling critical vacancies among our COs. Over the last 2 years, we've cut the corrections officer vacancy rate in half, hiring nearly 3,000 new COs. Our investment in law enforcement are working. Violent crime is down across Pennsylvania. Yep. And we understand that investing in law enforcement is one part of that success. The other part is working with community groups, youth groups, and church groups to lift up their work. We created the Boost Initiative to help expand after-school programs so kids have somewhere safe and productive to go before their parents get off of work. 4 dozen after-school programs are expanding because of our collective work, giving thousands of kids more opportunities to succeed and less opportunities to engage in violence. That's a good start, and this budget builds on that foundation so we can expand our impact and make our communities safer. I want to give special thanks to Lieutenant Governor Davis, the chairman of PCCD, for connecting the dots between our state funding and the organizations on the ground who are doing meaningful work to reduce violence in our communities. So here's what I want us to do together. Ensure we've got good schools for our kids in every zip code, grow our economy and cut costs for people in rural, urban, and suburban communities, slash taxes and spur economic growth, make healthcare and energy accessible and affordable for all Pennsylvanians, ensure our kids can walk down the street safely, stop giving our neighboring states a competitive advantage. These are common sense Pennsylvania priorities that I know we all share. I recognize some may have a different approach to these objectives, but we've got to work at it together. Look, I get how politics works. I know there are some folks in this room who will feel the need to just reflexively be against whatever I'm for. Remember, despite the wave nationally, voters sent the same group back here to keep making progress. And so I ask you to resist the temptation to put politics above people, and instead, let's continue to work together to solve problems in Pennsylvania. Two days ago, I was standing with nearly 50,000 people in a cold field in Punxsutawney at 6 o'clock in the morning as the sun rose over the horizon. Folks from every corner of our Commonwealth were there. In fact, from all corners of this great country and several foreign countries, gathered together to see our official state meteorologist, Phil, come out and give us a glimpse into our collective future. At that moment, as we held our breath while the president of the inner circle, Tom Shingle Shaker Dunkel, waited to see if Phil would see his shadow. Tom and his wife join us here today in the back of the chamber. Welcome, Shingle Shaker. We were all just there together in shared humanity and in good spirits, excited to be part of this tradition. Now listen, I know some folks think we're all crazy for standing in the freezing cold waiting for Phil. But I gotta tell you, I love Groundhog Day. I go every year, and the greatest part is seeing tens of thousands of joyful people coming together from all different walks of life. Pennsylvania is built on traditions that bring us together, traditions that both celebrate our shared past and also welcome newcomers to share in the fun. That's the spirit of Pennsylvania. And it started when William Penn first founded our home as a place that would be welcoming for all. Each successive generation has passed down those traditions. And through it all, we've made sure that Pennsylvania would be a place where everybody belongs. No matter what you look like or where you come from, who you love or who you pray to, a place where you could be comfortable being yourself. A place where we continually forge ahead, never losing the traditions that bind us together, but always creating new pathways of opportunity for all. You know, the first Groundhog Day was held in 1887. And since then, Pennsylvania has stayed true to those values. Our Commonwealth fueled the Industrial Revolution, lifting people out of poverty, powering the middle class, and creating the American labor movement. Pennsylvania workers in energy and steel gave rise to the arsenal of democracy and the most powerful manufacturing base in the world. Our scientists created medical miracles and life-saving remedies, including the vaccine that drove back the scourge of polio. We built the first modern interstate linking Beaver County to Bensalem. From art to music to sports, great Pennsylvanians like Teenie Harris and Andy Warhol, Franco Harris, and Taylor Swift have inspired the world. And all along the way, when the world needed some changing, Pennsylvanians like James Fortin, Cecil B. Moore, and Rachel Carson triumphed through the tumult. But through it all, our legacy has been defined every day by folks rising up, demanding more, seeking change, and always keeping us on that path toward progress. I'm inspired by those people, and we owe it to them to tackle the challenges we face today with that same spirit, with principled common sense and a respect for all. By staying true to our values, I know we can work together to get more stuff done. And of course, by honoring our traditions, including the tradition of getting our weather from a groundhog. Listen, I'm proud as hell to be your governor, to take up that baton of progress passed down through the generations and run toward a future filled with opportunity for all. Ladies and gentlemen, Pennsylvania is on the rise. Let's keep reaching for that horizon together. May God bless you and our fellow Pennsylvanians, and may God watch over the men and women of the Pennsylvania National Guard and all who wear the uniform. Thank you. God bless you.